Good. Hello, everybody. I'd like to call this regular council meeting to order at exactly 5:30 p.m. Welcome, everybody. Um, and with that, Councillor Stone, are you reading the land acknowledgement, please?
All right. I would like to respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe under the terms of the Robertson-Huron Treaty No. 61 of 1850 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. We commit to acknowledge, learn, educate, create opportunity, honor sacred spaces, and take actions towards real truth and reconciliation in support of our commitment to walking the path together in respect, peace, and harmony for future generations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stone. And with that, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, we'll just move right along. And we, in fact, do have one presentation tonight, and it is with respect to the Muskoka Community Land Trust and the Florence Street project update. And we are joined by Patrick Chouinard, who is the new CEO or Executive Director, I guess is the correct title, and Matt Boland, who will be from McCallum Sather Architects, who is joining us virtually, as well as Chris Minerva from Trave Structural, who is also joining us virtually. And in the audience, we also are joined by Councillor Tatiana Sutherland, who is a Town of Bracebridge and District Councillor, who is also the chair of the MCLT, as well as Ben Jardine, who we all know, who has been engaged and involved in moving this project forward since day one. And we are really, really grateful to have all of you with us tonight. And with that, I would ask, Patrick, are you coming forward on your own, or Tatiana, you're joining? Councillor Sutherland.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. My name is Patrick Chouinard. I'm the Executive Director for Muskoka Community Land Trust, and I'm joined by Tatiana, everyone knows. So the main goals of the Muskoka Community Land Trust are to have occupancy in the building by September 2027. And the goal is really to be on time and on budget. And we're also attempting to make this Muskoka a model for other communities, an example of how a community comes together to tackle their affordable housing crisis quickly, affordably, sustainably, using modern methods of construction. Before I get into that, I wanted to introduce a few of the new team members that are part of the team driving the whole Florence Street project. I'm assuming I'm accompanied by Matt Boland at this point. So Matt, are you with us?
I'm with you. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so Matt is a principal with McCallum Sather Architects. And Matt and I have known each other for quite a number of years, and he has been an architect that has been the architect for many of these types of projects. And so I just wanted to introduce Matt at this time. And Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience with this kind of project.
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everyone, for having me today, and through you, councillors or chair. So yeah, as Patrick said, I'm an architect based out of Kitchener, Waterloo, but our work has taken us around the province of Ontario, and specifically now even into the north, into Iqaluit, Nunavut, and various remote communities, and even other provinces in the country. So we do have a focus in a variety of different areas at McCallum Sather, but something I've been really focused on and aligned with Patrick and Chris and others on for a number of years now has been around housing, and focus that work around housing around an understanding of the housing continuum of need, which is obviously quite broad, but in most different jurisdictions, it's something where where you know there's a lot of pressure right now to build housing that's affordable, and more importantly, housing that can be delivered quickly to address the needs and not be caught in that quagmire of delays and things, because basically in a lot of cases delays lead to not only not providing the housing but inflation of costs back to what has been budgeted for. So that's been a lot of our priority. I can share really briefly here just a quick snapshot of some of the projects we've done over the last number of years, if I can, or if it says I'm disabled from sharing those right now. So Patrick, not sure if you're able to do that, but if not, it's not a big deal.
I have a
Should I-
few I have a slide that'll show some of those, Matt.
Sure. Sounds good. So I'll just keep it brief then, to say that specifically what we've been able to do is deliver a lot of projects using mass timber, which obviously Patrick has some great experience with. And when it comes, connecting back to local resources, particularly in northern communities, that's been something that's been really special. It creates not only a sense of warmth and well-being to the spaces, but also, creates a really positive carbon footprint, carbon embodiment. So from an environmental standpoint, it's something very positive. And what we've been able to also show is that from a building optimization and efficiency, in terms of the speed with which we're able to deliver them, the amount of offsite manufacturing that can go into them, that's been a huge benefit. So the projects we've done, particularly under the Rapid Housing Initiative and the 3 different rounds of it, starting back in 2021 approximately, where we've been able to deliver housing projects, 40, 60, 20 units, varying scales in that medium density range that this project that we're talking about today is within. I think we've been able to have a lot of success there. It does definitely require, and why I think we're interested in here in making this connection and introduction today, it does require a lot of community collaboration amongst all the different groups involved. Authorities have a jurisdiction, consultants, builders, and it's pretty exciting to know that this project has all those components here and in play. So happy to answer any questions today and do anything else along with Chris, who brings his structural expertise.
All right, thank you very much, Matt. And so I'd like to turn it over to Chris Minerva. And Chris is the structural engineer on the project, and he's had many project experiences of this type, and about 5 of those projects together with McCallum Sather Architects. So let me turn it over to you now, Chris.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. And similar to Matt, it was much more eloquent at speaking than I am. The architect versus engineer always shows up pretty quickly in these conversations. But rapid affordable housing is a very special phrase for me, and it's something that I've dedicated quite a bit of my career, especially the past 15 years to. Just to sort of show it quickly, I pulled some stats earlier today, and I've built over 2 million square feet of mass timber building, and I've built over 700 affordable housing units, predominantly in the Toronto area. So it's something that we can put a little bit of weight behind and skill. And the last thing I wanted to leave you with is, I know Patrick's going to go into a bit some of the conversations we've had to how we see this working best. But my experience is not just in mass timber. I've done a tremendous amount of steel, concrete, light gauge, precast. We've looked at many different ways to work through this rapid affordable housing and to all the benefits that Matt mentioned just a few minutes ago with environmental and sort of the speed of it. Patrick, I think, is going to take you through where we're going so far.
All right, thank you very much. That was quite eloquent, Chris. So
I'm no Matt, but thank you.
Okay.
Totally
so-
disagree.
Yeah, let me go to the next slide. So just to talk a little bit about modern methods of construction, you may have heard the term mentioned quite a lot recently. Build Canada Homes is talking about modern methods of construction, and these are the construction methodology that we're employing at the Florence Street project. So going back in time, this was the first project that Matt and I did together. It's for the YWCA. This was for single women that were at risk of homelessness. This is a 41-unit apartment building in Kitchener, Ontario. This is what the structure of that building looks like. So everything you see here is made in a factory. All of the window and door openings, all the mechanical penetrations, built in a factory in St. Thomas, Ontario, and it's delivered to site like IKEA furniture. Many advantages in this form of construction. For example, the panels that you see here, I don't know if my wand, no, I guess my wand's not going to work, but the panel that you might see leading in the front corner that looks like 4 stories, that is a single panel. It's called cross-laminated timber. It's about 10 feet wide by 45 feet tall, and the building is made entirely out of wood. Those panels are used for the floors, for the demising walls between the units, for the elevator shafts, for the exterior wall panels. To demonstrate the speed with which we're able to assemble these buildings, we put a time-lapse camera on an adjacent building, and so this is a short little video, and I'll play that for you now if I can. So again, this is for the YWCA in Kitchener, Ontario. 23,000 square feet, 4 stories, 41 apartment units. So this is August 2021. So the general contractor is in there doing all the site preparation work and putting in the foundation. This is before any of the mass timber materials arrive on site. So this is day 1, September 23rd, 2021, the first day that these materials arrive on site. There's no cutting of these materials on site, essentially like IKEA furniture. Here we are October 5th, so within 8 days, we were able to assemble the first 2 floors of the building. So this is day 20. So within 20 days, we were able to assemble the complete superstructure for the building. So these are the modern methods of construction that Build Canada Homes is interested. Part of the solution to the affordable housing crisis is to figure out how to start producing these buildings in volume in high-tech fabrication facilities. So Build Canada Homes is investing in the infrastructure to be able to invest more in the manufacturing plants that are building these forms of construction. And this building that we're doing here, Florence Street, will use these methods of construction, and we'll actually be employing some of the latest and greatest as this technology has evolved over the last 4 years. This will be a building where we've had 5 years of experience doing these kinds of buildings, and we're using the latest and greatest technologies and components to be able to build this building here. So this is intended to put Muskoka on the map as leadership in this form of construction. These are also lovely buildings on the inside. These are photos that you'll see of the interior of the YWCA. So the one on the left-hand side is the units. So the apartment unit, and the ones on the right-hand side are of the lobby of this building. And we're intentionally leaving as much wood as we can exposed to create these healthier, human-centered buildings. So the YWCA was a building that was done around 5 years ago. That was the one that Matt and I did together, and we've now done around 20 of these projects. The ones that you see here where the title is in brown, so the top left-hand side is YWCA, so all of those ones that you see in brown, these were architected by McCallum Sather Architects. The ones that are in green, so on the far right, halfway down is the one in green, that was engineered by Chris Minerva. And the ones that are in blue, so you'll see 4 of them there that are in blue, and they were architected and engineered with Matt Boland as well as Chris. So lots of years of working together. This, in my mind, is the A-team. These 2 individuals together are probably the leaders in modern methods of construction in Ontario, and we have them on our team here in Florence. As the design and engineering of these buildings has evolved, we realized that we can do these buildings for less money than the all mass timber building, the all CLT building that has the panels both vertically and horizontally. This is a hybrid version. This is a hybrid lightwood frame version of that building where we're using prefabricated lightwood frame wall panels for the outside of the building. So these are just wood stud walls that are prefabricated in factories. And we're using the heavy timber components, the heavy timber floor panels just for the floors and the cores of the building, and this has allowed us to be able to reduce the cost of this building. So this is the structural methodology that we're using in the Florence Street project here. So in addition, most of these buildings have been constructed using a product called CLT, cross-laminated timber panels, and but some of the newer buildings are using a nailed laminated timber panel. It's a very similar panel, but it's a lot cheaper to manufacture, and it's around 5 to 20% less expensive than the CLT version. So our intention is to use an NLT product versus a CLT product here. And this, you'll see what the ceilings look like. They look slightly different than the ceilings you'll see in the other photographs, but nevertheless, still lovely. So in terms of schedule, we are planning on cutting trees starting this week? Yes. So they will be starting to cut the trees selectively as well. We've been very careful not to cut down too many trees, only the trees that are necessary for the footprint of phase one, with approval from the town on exactly where we're going to be cutting those trees. A building permit application will be submitted around the week of May 18th. The footings and the foundation will go in around the week of August 3rd. The materials will arrive on site around November 2nd. These are the heavy mass timber materials that I'm referring to. And then the structure will be assembled by approximately December 4th. So we'll put up the structure in about 25 days. And then occupancy is anticipated by September 2027. There's some issues and topics, I guess, that are currently being considered. One is the tower move, and there's been a number of conversations over the last week or so. The town of Huntsville is aggressively trying to sort out the tower situation, and it looks like it's could be a co-location situation, which you're probably all very familiar with. So it looks like we'll be able to sort out the tower move. And in addition to that, it looks like, and I don't know whether, Matt, you can comment on this or not, but it looks like we'll be able to build phase one without even having to move the tower. So if moving the tower becomes a problem, we can continue to work on the project and start working on phase one of the overall project. Matt, are you there?
Yep,
There he is.
I am.
I don't know if you have any comments about that, Matt?
Well, I think I would maybe just like to say, and again, we're right in the midst of now diving into this site planning exercise. We had that great conversation with Civil, along with Ben, around the process to date, just getting up to speed, getting caught up. I think there are some very specific things based on our experience with this type of building and some of the important, not just about the building itself, but about how you design the building and what you should and shouldn't include. We feel pretty strongly that for this typology of building, structuring parking within usually isn't the best strategy in terms of optimizing the design, the timeline, and the use. So one of the things we're immediately looking at is a way of regularizing a building form specifically on phase one, but also that something that can be repeated across future phases is a more standard rectilinear building and without structured parking, so more of a slab on grade type of approach that will create, again, speed, efficiency, cost effectiveness, simplicity of the design. And in doing those things, yes, we are pretty confident at this point, subject to just refining our building footprints and making sure that, again, we're fully informed on bearing capacity, civil design, what have you, through that site planning that we're going to be doing here and formalizing. But we are quite confident that an updated building form for phase one should be able to stay out of the range of disrupting that existing guide wire that comes down in and around the area where that first building is planned for. So we're hoping if we can keep, again, our foundations very simple and straightforward and keep our building footprint and any excavation work out of that zone. We're hoping that any delays in moving that tower won't ultimately, hopefully, disrupt phase one.
Thank you, Matt. Okay, then land title transfer. So that is being worked on as well. It's not a critical issue in the short term. Where it is of real value is when we submit our second application to Build Canada Homes, because at that point, they will recognize the value of the land as a contribution to the project. So it's really important that the title to the land be in MCLT's possession at the time when we submit phase 2 of the Build Canada Homes application, which is probably 4 to maybe 8 weeks from now. So if we can't actually have the land transferred over, then some confirmation, some formal acknowledgement from the town that you will transfer the title over, we could use that probably with our application with Build Canada Homes, and they can accept that. But ultimately, we'll need to transfer at some point. And then no small challenge, of course, is we need to raise $23 million in order to fund this project. Fortunately, there are many sources for this kind of funding. Going back to the topic of modern methods of construction, Build Canada Homes favors this form of construction. So there will be, I'm guessing, in a neighborhood of 1,000 or more applications to Build Canada Homes for these kinds of buildings. But we have two advantages. One is these modern methods of construction that we're employing that others will not be employing in their applications, and also being shovel ready. So they're really interested in funding projects that are almost ready to go. And the Florence Street project is very close to being shovel ready. So we'll have those advantages that we apply for. And you'll see a list of a number of programs that are available. And all of these programs that are available are supportive of this form of construction that we're employing here. So no guarantees that we're going to get the money, but I think we have an advantage over other applicants. That concludes the presentation.
It does. Wow. Thank you very much, Patrick, for all of that, and to your team, and to Tatiana and Ben for being here again. I should have clarified at the very beginning that one of the reasons it's great getting the update, but in fact, for those who might be watching, we do have a staff report once again tonight around the telecommunications tower. So that is something we are dealing with tonight. I know there are going to be questions, and so at this point, I'm going to ask Council if you have any questions of the team while they're here. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you, and thank you so much for coming, and thank you for the presentation. We've been up to date on a lot of these things. Looking at your website, it looks like the build is about 2 stories high that you're proposing on the Florence Street location. What you showed us in your presentation looks like it's 4 stories high.
Yeah.
So is it a 2-story?
Yeah, what I showed you was other buildings that have been completed elsewhere. And in fact, many of these buildings that are done like this are done up to 6 stories. In fact, in Ontario, we can go 18 stories with these buildings. But for Florence Street right now it's designed to 3 stories. Yes, the Florence Street project is designed to 3 stories. Yeah, and that's the intention, 3 stories.
Just a follow-up.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that you put in all the other sort of buildings that have been built. There's one in particular that's on 60 Bowden Street, and it's an affordable housing with seniors, and you've used old architecture with this very box-like structure, and that's the one thing that I would say from a visual point of view, that they're very box-like, and I guess it's part of the construction. How do you think it'll look more Muskoka when you bring it here? Because I think the fact that it looks very box is the word I can use, right? It's not very attractive. So I'm hoping that you're going to come up with something that's like, obviously you can't do what you did on 60 Bowden, but is there something that can make it look a little bit more?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they can be,
Yes.
It's amazing how lovely you can make box-like structures look. Matt, you're the architect. Maybe I'll pass it over to you to
Matt.
Sure.
Talk about it.
Yes, we do pride ourselves on the ability to make nice looking boxes, but there is also no, I think, a real importance. One of the things that we're not looking to do is come up with, call it international style architecture or brutalist architecture, where it doesn't matter where it is in the world, it looks the same. It's, same old box. One of the things about creating a really solid system and an ability to between offsite manufacturing and just capturing the efficiency is it actually, in fact, opens up opportunity to make sure that you have that flexibility through your facade, particularly through your facade, your balcony, and your roof systems to design to the context of the place. And specifically this case, obviously Muskoka has a very rich architecture background that we're going to want to tie into and be representative of responsibly, of course, to the use of the building, to the budget, to a lot of different factors that we're very used to balancing. But I think there are opportunities there in terms of the facades, the cladding, the product we use, which on a 3-story, there is quite a bit of flexibility on what we can use. There's also that, an important discussion we're going to be having here in the short term is around balconies. And, there's certain, for example, as we look at that continuum of need, if we go from, shelters in transitional housing, which basically don't want balconies operational, they're considered not something that is, desired. As you move through that continuum up to, call it affordable housing and or market rate housing, seniors housing, different things, those amenity spaces, those exterior balconies and terrace and spaces become essential and become really important and something that needs to be considered into both the budget and the design. Those offer opportunities where we can really start to affect that box-like structure and create more depth, create more interest. And the final 2 is around just the roof. And as Chris will be able to speak to, there's a lot of different ways we can do the roof. And one specific way when it comes to, again, these 3- and 4-story structures, although we can, of course, do a flat roof, in some cases doing a sloped roof, in fact, even as long as we can properly design in, mechanical systems and things and equipment to be done appropriately, depending on the systems we choose there. But there is actually opportunity to do sloped roofs. And with those sloped roofs, obviously that deals with things like snow and a lot of things. In a lot of cases, actually, the sloped roof on work we've done, not the ones that Patrick showed, but on a lot of them, they actually, in fact, are a cost savings measure. And in this case, I think it's definitely something we'll want to be looking at, again, balancing out some of these different priorities and design decisions. But that specifically could really help us create some more refinement and articulation on the design and the massing to move it a little bit more away from that boxy structure.
Just to follow up on Matt, you mentioned facade, and I know that there's a lot that can be done in that. I'm thinking of the project in Bracebridge at 100 Pine Street. We just toured that. And if you look, Councillor Renwick, at the different use of different materials on the facade, it actually really improves the building itself. Yeah, yeah. So I think Councillor Sutherland, did you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Alcock, through you to answer Councillor Renwick's question as well. I think while we're in the midst of a potential redesign here, it's also important to remember that there are other aspects of this property that are really going to contribute to feeling like we're in Muskoka. So it has been the mission and the goal from the beginning of the Muskoka Community Land Trust 6 years ago to make this feel like a community, not just a bunch of boxes. And so there has been in the original design, and there have been many iterations, as you all know, because you've been sitting around this table talking about this over and over again as we've gone through an evolution. Green space, community gardens, retaining trees that don't need to be cut down, building a sense of community, making sure that we have approval from neighbors and buy-in from people who directly abut the property in order to make it pleasing to them and not feel intrusive in the neighborhood. All of those things have been part of an extensive consultation process that has gone through the years. And so while the built form of the building itself may go through some transformations, and we try to make that as Muskoka as possible, there are other really critical components that are going to set this project apart from any other housing development that is going on in Muskoka right now. So I want to, make sure that we remember that this is a 4-phase project. Each phase is going to look a little bit different, and that is going to contribute to, the sort of diversification of feeling as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you for that input.
Well said, yeah.
Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you, Worship. Through you, I'm just glad to hear that you're becoming shovel ready, because as you just mentioned, Councillor Sutherland, we've been sitting on this for about 6 years and, we've been losing faith in it. And it's nice to hear it's actually may happen, and I'm excited about the whole thing. My question has to do with fire protection for the building, being a wood structure. I know you're going to sprinkle it, and you probably put fire breaks in, but a lot of them are concrete and they have no burn staircases and stuff like that. So how do you protect it from fire and spread throughout the building?
Back over to you, Matt. I'll let you
I'm
deal with
just-
those questions.
Yeah, I'm just smiling, Patrick, because I'm wondering how many times you've answered with your background of basically being the pioneer of bringing
Right.
mass timber to Canada.
Yeah.
How many times have you answered the question, but doesn't it burn?
Good
So
question.
the answer is, the answer to that is everything is susceptible to fire damage, but specifically, and where we're at a place now in this country is a place that Europe was at, decades ago, which is when it comes to mass timber or just generally building with timber, there's just a lot better sophistication, understanding of fire ratings, and specifically with mass timber, how mass timber has fire ratings. It does not, and every rating, whether it be a steel building, concrete, wood, as Chris can go into in more detail, everything is susceptible to fire and to collapse based on fire eventually, whether it be through the heat or what have you. The simple reality is the building codes enforce for this type of building a 1 hour rating for structure and for separation between suites. And there's a lot of different ways we can achieve that rating, and with a lot of different products. And so what it really comes down to is using the best products to do that in the most efficient way, and balancing out those forces. So whatever type of structural system you're using at this scale, they're all on the table, and they all essentially do the same thing in terms of achieving that 1 hour fire rating. Once you're up over 6 stories, then you start to get, which again, we're also doing, then you start to get into a little bit more nuance around encapsulation requirements on certain things. But the simple answer is whether it's a steel framed wall or a wood framed wall, which concrete, you don't ever going to have exposed concrete really, and whether it be precast or block or what have you, you're always going to have steel framing in and around that for chases and what have you. And that steel framing needs to be protected by drywall. Same with a stick framed wall. It needs to be protected by drywall and all of these applications to get that rating. The mass timber is actually a really great product though, in the case of these mid-rise structures, because it in and of itself achieves that 1 hour on its own. So that's why it's become a really great product. Because again, of its ability to have its aesthetic exposure, the cost savings of not having to cover it up if you're using that mass timber product in this scale of development has really been great. If we go up to the higher density, the over 6 stories, then we start, getting into needing to cover that up in some cases too, in order to get to a 2 hour rating. But we're nowhere near needing to address that in this case for these types of build form. So hopefully that answers the question.
If I could add very, very, very briefly, one quick thing that I find amazing about mass timber. So from a structural perspective, we design fire in. So essentially, the way we designed it is that if there were a fire, the structure is still standing and still capable. We call that char. But the more impressive thing is I sat in a meeting in Ottawa where we were able to sit there and watch the fire folks in Ottawa burn a full CLT building. And the most amazing thing we found, it was supposed to be a 3 hour test, and after about 45 minutes, the fire extinguished itself because the mass of wood and the charring of the wood essentially eliminated the ability for oxygen to get in there, and it's self-extinguishing properties. So a lot of what we know about watching a 2x4 go up in flames, we're learning new about how mass timber built together comes in a fire.
Thank you for that. Really interesting. Councillor Schumacher.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Alcock. I'm assuming weather isn't really dependent. The drop-off date is November 2nd, and I know Mayor Alcock and Renwick and myself have toured the Great Pumpkin Trail in a snowstorm on Halloween a number of times here.
Yeah.
So that whole build through the month of November,
Yeah.
if there's snowstorms, not going to be a problem?
Not at all. We build these buildings all year round. And the fact that they go up quickly and we're able to enclose them quickly protects them from a lot of exposure to the elements. Key thing is the foundation goes in ideally before the frost sets in. So you've got a foundation in place, and then we can build at any time of the year. And because it's wood, it has a natural ability to absorb and expel moisture. So once the building is enclosed, it has the opportunity to expel that moisture. And we build all year round.
I have a very quick question. Patrick, you made reference to all of the different ways we might receive funding for this. And the first one, obviously, BCH or Build Canada Homes. I know we are participating with the District of Muskoka in that application. I'm wondering if we have a timeline when that first application goes in.
Yes, so there's a
Maybe I'd send it to
Sure.
Councillor Sorry about that. I should have.
Sorry, and you might actually know better than I do on this one, but we can
Yeah.
take turns if we need to. Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Some of the dealings with Build Canada Homes have created a little bit of frustration. At one point, the message was, it doesn't matter if you have all your information, all your documents in a row, get the application in. This is a super oversubscribed program, and just get it in. That messaging has changed now. It's better if it's a little bit later, as long as you have everything. So otherwise we might just not even look at it. So you can, it makes your head spin a little bit.
Clear as mud.
Yeah. But what's worth stating, so we're looking, it's being actively worked on this week, next week, the following week. I'm hoping within the next few weeks it'll go in. But what is important is that, it's possible, very, very possible and quite likely that this particular project is the closest to shovel ready of any other project in the district. And so it's critical for the land trust, for the MCLT, to get its ducks in a row for both the town of Huntsville, the Muskoka Community Land Trust, and the District of Muskoka in the pursuit of that application, because we are so close to being a submission ready project, like just a few ticked boxes away.
That's great. And Patrick, do you want to add to that?
I was just going to say that one of the things that's required for the Build Canada Homes application is to have a certified quantity surveyor come in and do a Class D budget estimate for the overall project. So that person has now been engaged, and we'll have that within a 2-week period. And then once that is completed, then we can complete the rest of the documentation that's required for submission.
That's fantastic. That's great. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Alcock. Thanks for the presentation. I just wondered, how much are you reliant on the Canada Homes funding? If the application isn't successful, is that going to jeopardize the project?
It could very well, yes. Yeah, so that's the number one source for funding for projects of this nature. But as I say, there are probably 5 or 6 other sources of funding for that. And some of that may be able to get us to a point where we have a certain amount of equity involved in the project. For example, there's another program available called the GC Wood Program, and that will fund up to $5 million, for example. So if we can get that funding, then we are able to have enough equity interest in this project ourselves so that we can then go to private investors as well. But private investors are always willing to lend only about 75% of the project. But if we can get enough money to get us up to that 25%, it opens up a whole window of other funding sources for us. So it'd be best if we can get it from Build Canada Homes, but it's not the end of the world, and we will seek financing from multiple sources. So
That's clear. All right. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just want to make one quick comment. I love the enthusiasm you have and the confidence you have. So let's keep building on that. Let's get some houses built.
thank you.
Ditto. I think that's great. Councillor Sutherland?
Just want to make one final comment from the perspective of the Land Trust. We stand out in the province as being a nonprofit organization that's trying to build affordable housing that has the cooperation and fantastic partnership with 2 levels of municipality, and Huntsville deserves tremendous kudos for being a leader in the province. This is going to be if we go with these modern methods of construction, the first of its kind in Muskoka. And Huntsville will be at the forefront of that. And we're very, very grateful to this council for, helping us along.
Thanks for that, and I think we all appreciate it. I think that also speaks to another reason why this is something Build Canada Homes should be supporting, because if done well, which I have no doubt it will be, if it's supported by them, that it is a model that could be used elsewhere. And I think that's really important for the entire region. So fingers crossed. I know. I don't see any other questions. Thank you all. We are going to move on with the rest of our agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, so we don't have any deputations, so I'm moving to council minutes. I have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Be it resolved that the following council meeting minutes be adopted as printed and circulated. Regular council, February 23rd, 2026. Planning Council, March 11th, 2026. And Special Council, March 13th, 2026. Are there questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, and moving along to reports from committees. We do, in fact, have minutes from Downtown Huntsville BIA, February 12th, 2026. Councillor Renwick, anything to share?
Thank you, Your Worship. No, other than the fact that their loyalty cards have come out. So if you're shopping downtown, you can get a loyalty card and get your purchase stamped. And I know the BIA is coming to General Committee on Wednesday to give us an update on all the great things that they've done over 2025. So looking forward to that. But other than that, everything else is there for your reading pleasure.
That's great. Great, thank you for that. I see Councillor Fitzgerald has a comment or a question.
I can't believe the financial situation of what I'm reading here. It's fantastic. Give everyone a big pat on the back. I think that's incredible. Keep up the good work. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Councillor Renwick?
Through you, Your Worship. Thank you for saying that, and thank you for reading the minutes. I will certainly pass that along to the to the committee and to the board.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions, so we are moving to reports for adoption. And I do have a motion moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that the General Committee meeting minutes dated February 25th, 2026, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted as printed and circulated. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. All right, and now finally, flipping my page, we are going to reports from municipal officers, starting with the much anticipated report 8.1 regarding the Florence Street West Communications Tower Engineering Review. Report Corp 2026-2740 Florence Street West Communications Tower Engineering Review. We are joined by Ian Parker and Scott Kett. And Ian, of course, is our own manager of IT, and Scott Kett is point-to-point communications. But before I turn it over to you two, I am supposed to read the motion. So I have a motion moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Whereas resolution number 125-25 authorized the reconstruction and replacement of the communication tower at 40 Florence Street West at a cost no more than $500,000 to be funded from the IT reserve. And whereas a request for tender was issued with bids received in excess of the approved amount, and whereas on March 13th, 2026, staff requested approval for an additional $250,000 toward the bid. And whereas due to the higher amount, council requested staff report back outlining options to A, use a co-location, and B, consult with the Muskoka Community Land Trust on potential financial commitments to help offset the cost, and whereas approval to award the RFT ended on March 17, 2026, now therefore be it resolved that staff be authorized to request a structural audit from the owner of 48 Florence Street West to assess the feasibility and cost of co-locating the town's operational and emergency services communication equipment on their communication tower. And further that the cost of the review of approximately $15,000 be added to the 2026 operating budget and funded from the IT reserve. Whew, thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Council.
I don't.
So again, this report, we aren't going into all the details. A lot of this is repeated from the special council and a number of other meetings. But for today, what we are looking for is the funding to support paying for the architectural or the engineering review on the co-location tower, just to understand where the town's position would be, what the feasibility, what the costs are of that. And that's really the meat of what today's discussion is. However, we were lucky enough that Scott's available to speak to us about a number of aspects. He's been working in the telecoms environment with point-to-point for over 30 years, working on fire radios, antennas, things like that. And I know that there's a number of questions and concerns. I believe this is a good opportunity if there's anything there to ask him. He does want to speak to one or two items specifically related to both the technology and potentially some pros and cons to selections between an owned tower and a co-location of a tower, and how that would impact the town and its operations. Do you wish to go ahead, Scott?
Thanks, Ian, your worship and council. What I thought I'd do today is just quickly do a bit of a review on the technology and how municipal radio systems work and what's required for them to do what they need to do. And then the second part, as Ian referred to, we'll kind of take just a quick look at tower sites specifically, ownership versus co-location, and go from there. And at the end, we'll do a Q&A. Any questions you have, we can go from there. Just to quickly review municipal radio systems in general, specifically with the public safety side with our fire departments. They do require a lot of control with regards to both coverage, radio infrastructure, DC backup for long AC power outages, and talk groups and channel capacity that are available on these systems. So most of our municipalities, fire departments, even province-wide systems such as MOH and OPP run on these customer-owned systems that are designed to give them, again, the coverage and backup that they require for each of their individual needs. Where we don't get that is with some of our public carrier type systems tend not to be in place with our municipal fire systems for those specific reasons. Tower selection is specifically important to ensure paging and portable radio coverage throughout the municipality for our fire departments and for radio coverage for our municipal works departments as well. In addition, dispatch centers need to be able to communicate with the fire departments through these towers, so they have to be able to connect to these towers to be able to dispatch calls out to the fire departments and to communicate operationally with them during these calls. Currently, both Huntsville Fire and Huntsville Public Works work kind of in a VHF public safety band of using radios in that public safety band. Again, hardware available on these customer-owned systems are very specific, and there's different accessories and radio types that can be used for different radio groups. Again, that's just more in comparison to just like a simple cell phone or a satellite phone. There's very specific radios that can be utilized with a specific set of accessories. Another thing that's very important with radio communications for our municipalities is interoperability between departments and also neighboring neighboring municipalities, especially on the fire side. That's crucial for mutual aid. So you really, as a group, as a county, as a district, you're usually running very similar type systems so that in mutual aid events, when you're over with your neighboring municipalities, we have that radio level interoperability so that they can communicate on fire ground with each other. There's also other variables there as well. The ability to tag in additional tools like our mobile repeater booster kits are very crucial in these specific customer-owned systems where, again, for certain buildings and certain geographical areas where the radio systems don't provide coverage, they can use these mobile repeater kits, turn those on, and give the firefighters the safety that they need running through the booster kits into the system. And lastly, I think I alluded to it a little bit earlier, was just that the MOH and OPP use similar type systems. It's just their systems are designed around the province-wide system for vehicle radio coverage. So they have fewer towers to cover certain areas, but they don't have the same type of penetration on the handhelds and the for paging that we require on the municipal side. But very similar systems used by all those agencies as well. And now just to go over a little bit with these towers, when we're selecting towers, towers are obviously crucial. They need to be able to link in with the Barrie Fire Dispatch in this case for Huntsville, and provide the coverage that the fire department and the municipal works department need for both their paging and radio coverage for day to day. Again, with tower sites, control is key. You keep going back to that word. Having control of your own radio system, having control of your own tower site is definitely beneficial. With our municipal systems, it is true when we're selecting any of our towers, and that's important for both the equipment we're installing on the towers. Can we put it at the appropriate heights? When we expand our systems, are we going to be able to add certain equipment or change equipment out for any future equipment that might be required there? And serviceability, how easy is it for us at 2 in the morning on a Friday or Saturday to get access to that if there's issues with the system for service. Basically, when we're selecting our tower sites, municipalities are always going to look at what's happening at that tower site. Is it a hub site? Meaning there's a lot going on there. We've got the fire department voice communication, we've got public works voice communication, we've got a bunch of town networking, the SCADA systems for the water department come through there. If all of that is taking place on a tower within the municipality, then again, that lends itself a little bit more to trying to own that tower if you can, because there's a lot going on with that tower. If it's kind of a single purpose tower where it's just for one thing, hey, need this infill coverage here, and it's just for fire coverage on the radio system, or it's just for SCADA for data moving back and forth, then again, you don't need as much control in that case, because you're probably going to put on the 1 or 2 pieces of equipment onto that tower and leave it and not touch it after that. So just in short, like generally the best option is to own or control your own tower site if you can, but the next best option would be to co-locate on other towers that are owned by a lot of times it's carriers or internet providers. Getting on those sites again can save the capital outlay of the building your own tower, as long as you understand some of the, I don't want to call them pitfalls, but just some of the things that you need to keep in mind when you're going on to somebody else's tower. You just don't have that same level of control. But I would say overall between, again, we look after a lot of the municipalities, Simcoe County, Parry Sound, Muskoka District, And I'd say it's probably 50-50 for a lot of the tower sites, just to give you an idea on whether they're customer owned or whether we're co-locating on a carrier type site. There is no right or wrong. It's just being able to look at your situation. Again, is it a hub site? Is it an infill site? Are we going to need to change things in the future there? And is there an ability for us to do what we need to do even in the present on that tower site? And that's it.
Thank you. So I guess if there's any questions for myself or Scott.
I can imagine there might be one or two. I really appreciate your last comment about the 50-50 as to other municipalities. I was curious about that, and that actually is quite reassuring. So, Councillor Stone.
Thanks. So is line of sight important for the things that we need to do? And will the tower that we're looking at co-locating on achieve those line of sight issues?
Yes, so there is some line of sight required there for the linking. So currently the Florence Street tower site is linked to the Port Sydney Greer Road tower site. So that is kind of a data microwave connection. And what that does is it allows everything that happens on the Florence Street site to occur on the Port Sydney site and vice versa. So it basically links those two sites together. The radios roam to whichever site they're closest to, no different than cellular. You key up, you go into that tower site, and then the radio link is what allows everything that happens on one to simultaneously go off of both sites at the exact same time. That piece there, the data link part, is line of sight. The VHF radio paging coverage is not line of sight per se, but kind of height is might for coverage is what the common terminology. So again, the higher up you are, the better coverage you're going to have. Currently, the Florence Street site is a really good site, obviously. It's located in a good location in the town. It's at a high point. You're using ground elevation. Again, anytime you can use ground elevation, that means you don't have to build as high a tower, which is fantastic. So it tends to work. We know the coverage is good from that location. So to potentially relocate that tower somewhere else could cause some issues. So trying to keep it in the same location, and I know the one, is it 48 was the address there? There is another tower site in close proximity, which is fantastic. It's just a matter of going through the process to see if you can get on there with what you need now and how much movement there is moving forward when you want to put something else out on there. It's as I've spoken many times with Ian, it's a shame. It used to be like, I've been doing this for 30 years, and it used to be that it was handshake agreements and we could just get on. If it was for public safety for a municipality, they would just let you on there and it was no problem. And now, unfortunately, unless you get on the ground floor, if you can kind of get in before they build and you can kind of assist with them getting the tower built, then you can get written into the tower and have a good setup there where you can be on there at no charge. So those instances still occur, just not with existing towers that are already in place. So there's some work there that needs to be done.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship, and through you. Thanks for coming and clarifying a few things and creating some more inquiries, I guess. You mentioned the public carriers, some of them don't have backup power. Can you give me a little more information on that, perhaps?
Sure. Public carriers all have backup power. It's just they have backup power for what they need at that specific site. Everything that a carrier does will be what the carrier requires at that site, not what a certain municipal group or a provincial group requires at that site. They all have DC backup, but when we're talking public safety and we're kind of talking worst case scenario, I know just speaking recently with the ice storm, again, when cell sites go down and we don't have anything, unfortunately, our our public safety groups still have to troop on and keep going, and they need the equipment to keep working. So by having their customer-owned system, they can design the DC backup to whatever level they want that to be, whether it's 8 hours, 16 hours, 24 hours. And then on top of that, they're going to have a procedure in place for generator backup besides that, so they can keep that site going for as long as they want to. Whereas if you're running on a public carrier site, you're just at the, whatever happens with that site you've kind of got to live with. And if and when it goes down, you're down.
Okay, thanks for that.
Yeah.
Follow up?
Sure.
You mentioned mobile boosters. Do we currently have mobile boosters, and how often do we employ them if we do have them?
Yep, we do have some mobile boosters. I think some of them went in as part of the grant last year. It was received. I think we had 2 of them put in there. So yes, they're fantastic for in building. They're not used as much, again, if your towers are doing what they need them to do for geographical areas per se, but especially for in building. I would say probably 80% of our departments use mobile repeaters now, and it's due to the new building constructions. So what happens is we're able to provide street level handheld radio coverage throughout a municipality with the towers as they're selected and placed, but we can't cover every square inch of every building that gets built. So a lot of commercial buildings today that get put into place, a lot of large recreation centers, any large big box stores, when you get deeper and deeper into those buildings, the radio has to penetrate all the way outside of those buildings and then still make it back to the tower site. So in some cases, certain buildings within municipalities, you don't have coverage on the actual system. So when you pull up, you turn the mobile repeater booster on and switch the channel in the radio, and now the radio just needs to talk to the truck, and the truck boosts it into the system. So
Okay, thank you. I do have one more. Do you want me to wait, or you want me to get it out of the
Let me
way?
check other councillors. If you can go ahead, Councillor Fitzgerald.
SCADA, I'm not sure what that acronym means, but I know the district uses it for water collection, for data, and for obviously public safety. And I need more information on that one. Maybe the district should be a partner in this tower with us.
yeah, so SCADA is just the kind of the control systems that are used. Water's the primary user of SCADA systems. So again, it's just basically data networks connecting up pump sites and whatnot, and being able to control everything. It's data acquisition and control, basically, is what it is. So all the pump sites, everything comes back to a control location. And these SCADA systems, again, a lot of times used to be run back in the day on copper wire, on wire lines, and now they're not. They're done wirelessly. So no different than your wireless internet type systems. They would be dedicated SCADA systems where you would have like a microwave link from this pump site back to a hub site, and that pump site comes in and the water reservoir comes in, and they're able to look at everything that's going on there and make changes and send commands from a control center.
And they're on the towers, and they're specialized equipment?
It would be very similar. The SCADA, the control equipment itself is its own thing. SCADA utilizes kind of data networking similar to what you would use for a wireless network, or that we use to link the tower sites together. Like linking Port Sydney and Florence link for voice communication, that link is very similar to what you would also use to connect a pump site or a water reservoir to a control station.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for all of those questions, Councillor Fitzgerald. I'm going to Deputy Mayor Armour and then followed by Councillor Morrison.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just curious, at one time, you talk a lot about fire dispatch, and at one time, fire dispatch used to be completed actually in Muskoka by Muskoka Paramedic Service at one time, and now we're buried. Is it a different system, those two systems, or are they the same?
The system that the fire department's running on has kind of changed a bit, but it's kind of all been one system as it's grown. Dispatch center is really just another radio in the system per se. So you've got a radio located at a dispatch center, and when they key that radio up, it basically goes over the air to Florence or Port Sydney and keys up into the system, no different than any other radio in the system. Excuse me. There is other ways of doing that through internet connections, which we used to have for Huntsville, but there's just some reliability issues there when you're a little further away, and it's another point of failure. So one of the improvements that we've made over time with some bigger towers being built in Barrie that were able to get us to Huntsville is we removed the internet connection from Barrie, and it's all done over the air now. So they have a radio sitting in Barrie, no different than a radio that's utilized in Huntsville. They key up on their dispatch console and it goes out to their network of towers in Barrie to where the fire radio sits. And when that radio keys up, it comes right into Florence or Port Sydney. And there's redundancy there for them now that just got put in again with the grant money there that allows Barrie Fire Dispatch to connect to both towers now. They used to just have Florence Street. Now they're able to connect to Florence and to Port Sydney.
Great. Okay, thank you for that. Did you
No,
follow
I
up?
just want to say, it sounds like a heck of a lot better system than it used to be.
Yeah.
Yes,
From
absolutely.
experience, Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, and through you. And I've just got a few, and I'm happy to break it up if other people have questions. Just while we have you here, Scott, and using your expertise. So at the moment, we're looking at, if we were to build the tower, looking at a 250-foot tower. We currently have a 210-foot tower. Obviously, it all depends on the height of the base and how high we have to go up. So like if the base is 10 feet lower, we'd need a 220-foot tower. I'm wondering, do you think there's going to be, based on your experience, do you ever see the need for height lessening due to new technology, or is it a consistent over the last 10, 15 years that the height requirement stays the same?
I don't see anything changing with technology that way. I think basically again, height is might there, and unless you were to go to some other type of, like, again, a carrier-based type system, there wouldn't be a requirement to lower that height over time. I think kind of, if what you've got now kind of works, then I would want to stay at that height. I don't see any changes, technology that was going to remove that. Again, a more powerful handheld radios would help a little bit, but again, they're kind of, I can't see that changing a lot because they're limited, because they're used by your head. They can't be more than 5 watts, so you're not kind of frying yourself. So yeah.
I'm not quite sure what to do with that particular comment. Can we strike that? Councillor Morrison, follow.
Can I-
You go ahead.
So I just wanted to clarify there that the answer is we are at 210 right now, but there are areas in the town of Huntsville where there is not coverage. So it's not that we're at a position we're getting full coverage now, and we're talking about little bits up and down. We're not already at 100% right now. So any reduction reduces us from our below 100% to less than that. So just as a further comment to that point.
As a cautionary tale. Okay, Councillor Morrison.
And kind of why Ian's looking at getting a bit more height so we can hit those places, right? And I agree, nobody wants to be frying anybody. So I don't want to be increasing the strength of the radios to get that done. And I guess I'm really back and forth on the business case for either one. I sat down with Ian and Tanya today and looked at the numbers in a different way. And now it's really hard to say which ones makes the most sense. We'll get into that when the audit comes back. But what I have done this afternoon, I was looking into it more on what municipalities have co-located, what have their own towers, what height it makes sense to co-locate and whatnot. But what I came across was that the province is strongly encouraging co-location. I don't know if you know that to be true, but it sounds like to have less towers in play and other reasons. And with that in mind, I wonder, and I know you're not really in the funding side of it, but do they do any kind of grants or funding to encourage towns to not have as many towers, much like buying an EV and these kind of things for the environment?
That I know of, there isn't any grants available. What you're talking about is absolutely true. Like they don't want additional towers if they don't have to have them. So they do try and get you to co-locate whenever possible. They do prefer that if you can. But as far as not that I know of that there's any grants or any assistance for if you're kind of doing a deed and not building a tower and co-locating, that there's anything in it for you at that point in time as far as any grant money or anything.
I think our CAO would like to jump in on this.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock. So Director Maxwell and I had the pleasure of speaking with the ADM for the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing just to speak to our project. Associate Minister Smith was kind enough to put us in touch with him. Unfortunately, it really boiled down to all of the housing funding flows through the Housing Authority, which is the District of Muskoka. And he gave us a couple of ideas of grants, but he felt it was more important we speak with the ADM for the Director of the Ministry of Infrastructure. So Director Maxwell and I have a discussion with him on Friday, so we will ask him that exact question. So we'll be able to report back to council then.
Thank you.
No, that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay, and the last one really comes down to cost, because at some point, at a certain number, it doesn't make sense to build, but at a certain number, it certainly does for long-term planning. And this table passed a motion to agree to a $500,000 budget, and we were all, well, we voted to be in favor of that, and then it came back much higher, 50% higher. Research I did this afternoon sounds like a lot of towers of this size in certain areas are coming in the 275 to 350 range. And I wonder, in your experience, have you gotten into the finances at all and seen that to be the norm? Does the $750,000 seem high? If we were to go back to tender, could we find a better price, is what I wondered.
I can't speak to that 100% just because I haven't seen the full tender and what was included in it. But I would say, like, normally you for a 200 and what were you saying, 250? For a 250 foot tower, your minimum starting price would be in the 250 range. You would start at $1,000 per foot type of thing and get yourself to 250. And then from there, it would be what else you're doing at the site and how complicated it is. I know in this case, it's kind of extremely complicated with it being all rock and whatnot. It's not definitely an easy foundation to build. I think when we talked about it before, we had talked about, when Ian and I discussed it before, that could be look upwards to kind of 400, 500K pretty quickly. But again, without looking at all the aspects of it, I couldn't speak to exactly as far as the way the bid was laid out and what came in. If there's a possibility, there could be a cheaper way to do it. Yeah.
Okay, Council, great questions tonight, and thank you for that, and thank you for all of the comments that you provided to us. That was great, Scott.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So I just want to remind Council what we have before us tonight is really asking staff, we're giving them authorization to request a structural audit for a cost of $15,000 to look at the possibility, the option of co-location. And that came out of the special council meeting that was held when council felt quite strongly that that was the option that we should be looking at. So this is the first step in that process. And when that audit comes back, then we can have a more fulsome discussion, to your point, Councillor Morrison, about, well, let's see what the impact of that is, and we might want to revisit some other things. So it's fairly straightforward ask tonight, and I know everybody knows that, but I'm reiterating for those who might be watching. So I don't see any other questions. I am going to call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Yes. Oh, Dan didn't vote. Oh, sorry. All those opposed? I thought,
Sorry, Your Worship, I had a question about the motion.
oh, you
That's why,
did?
yes.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, my apologies. I asked, okay. It's been called. Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay, it carries. Is it okay if Dan asks the question? So you didn't
The clerk
vote?
has spoken.
The clerk has spoken. I thought I asked, and where was your hand when I asked? When I,
I had the question about the motion, not a question for Scott.
oh,
That's okay.
okay. All right, my apologies. Okay, it carries. When it comes, when it comes. Okay, council, we are moving to agenda item 8.2 with respect to report number Corp 2026-13, and it is signing authority for the Better Homes Huntsville agreements. And I do have a motion before I turn it over to our member of staff, David Zilke. It has been moved by Councillor Cloutier, seconded by Councillor Morrison, whereas the Corporation of the Town of Huntsville requires Better Homes Huntsville participants to enter into a binding agreement with the corporation in order to receive financing for eligible retrofit projects, and whereas the corporation and its program delivery partners require access to pre- and post-project energy audit results to verify that retrofit projects have been completed in accordance with this agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Director of Financial Services Treasurer or designate be authorized to sign such agreements on behalf of the corporation, including any amending agreements as needed to enable the corporation to loan and recover funds with Better Homes Huntsville participants, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the attached memorandum of understanding, which is in Appendix A, permitting National Resources Canada to share Better Homes Huntsville participant data with the Town of Huntsville and its program delivery partners. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you, good evening, Council. Here today for the motion that the Mayor's already read, but just a couple of sort of context items for you. The first part of this resolution is with respect to the property owners agreement. So this is the agreement that homeowners will sign with the corporation of the Town of Huntsville for us to be able to loan them 50% of the money up front to be able to go and complete their retrofit projects as they've laid out through their energy audit, energy coaching with our program advisors, and discussions with sort of experts that they've worked with up to this point. That agreement, we probably should have just asked you for that signing authority when we were here in January, but happy to be back to do it today. And then the second piece is a new agreement that we just got in discussions with National Resources Canada. So the reason for this agreement is for us to be able to receive data on the energy audits that are conducted on the applicants' homes. And this is going to be part of our reporting requirements to our funding agency that we have to go and share with them the improvements that have been made, the level of energy reductions that have been observed in homes, that type of thing. I'll just note that although it says, say, data sharing agreement, we are not sending them anything. They are sending us data, and all of that data is coming for homeowners that have already consented to be part of the program. Happy to answer any questions about those two things or about the Better Homes Huntsville program more generally now that it's been open for several weeks. If you've had any questions from constituents that I might be able to help answer or at least find the person that can, I'm happy to do that as well.
Thank you very much, David. And I know you made reference to it in the report. We have to date 22 applications.
23, actually, as of today.
23.
Yeah.
See, that's fantastic. That's great. Council, questions regarding this motion? It's pretty straightforward. Don't see any, so I can call the question. All those in favor? And now I'm looking around. Yes, that carries all the way around. Sorry, I'm a little gun shy now. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great work. With that, we are moving along to bylaws. I have a motion moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that bylaw numbers 2026-25 to 2026-27 be reported and passed this 23rd day of March 26. Bylaw 9.1, Bylaw 2026-25, Building Inspection Shared Service Agreement, repeal and replace 2019-121. 9.2, Bylaw 2026-26, CPPA, Thatcher and Volsinic, 55 Stevenson Road, 7 East, and Bylaw 2026-27, CPPA, Sanford Investment Corp., 5 Haynes Road. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that carries. Okay, so with that, we are moving to new business, and in fact, we do have 2 items under new business, starting with a new resolution, but old subject, and really excited to see this back on our agenda. It is with respect to the town of Huntsville's interest in looking at road salt usage and decreasing the levels in our town. And council will remember that we have endorsed motions by the town of Bracebridge as well as the District of Muskoka. And what this is our very own motion to say, in reference to the town of Huntsville lakes and what we do here in the town of Huntsville. Recently at the District of Muskoka Community and Planning Services Committee, we had a report on the lake system health. And in fact, the levels of salt are certainly, of chloride into our lakes. It's certainly an issue, and it needs drastic attention. Right now, as this motion says, roughly a quarter of lakes sampled by the District of Muskoka now have chloride levels above 10 milligrams per liter, which is not a good thing. So this just reinforces the town of Huntsville's commitment to looking at road salt usage. Did you, Councillor Morrison, I know you had asked to bring this back. Anything to add, or?
Yeah, the only reason I'll mention is because it might be confusing because we passed one on this. The reason it's coming back is hearing from the Friends of the Watershed. They now have 36 or 39 municipalities in Ontario that have passed a motion, and they're all the same. So for their advocacy, it helps to have the wording the same, even though the intent is still the same as what we're already passing.
Right.
So they're very happy that we're taking this step, and it's going to help them in their efforts.
Awesome. That's great. Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. I'm going to ask council if you will allow me to waive the reading of this motion because it's over a page. It was moved by Councillor Morrison and seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. And it is exactly what I described, which is with respect to chloride levels, concentrations in our lakes. Okay? Everyone's had a chance to read it. Deputy Mayor Armour? Any comments about this particular motion? No?
It's not costing us any money. I'm okay.
All right, okay, perfect. Thank you. I will remember to ask you every time now. All right, I will call the question. All those in favor? That's great. Thank you, everybody. Okay, and then the second item is with respect to a 3-way stop at Chaffey Township Road and Highview Drive. And I do have a shorter motion, which I will read before I turn it over to Councillor Clark. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Schumacher. Whereas Council has received a request from residents in the area of Chaffey Township Road and Highview Drive for a 3-way stop. And whereas a stop sign has been placed northbound on Highview Drive at Highview Drive and Chaffey Township Road. Now therefore be it resolved that stop signs be included in the reconstruction design of Chaffey Township Road at Highview Drive to create a 3-way stop. And further that bylaw 2025-107 be amended to include stop signs both eastbound and westbound on Chaffey Township Road at Highview Drive. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Alcock. So basically, residents at the beginning of Chaffey Township Road have requested a three-way stop at the Highview Drive intersection for added pedestrian safety. So now that the road is being redone, I thought it'd be a good time to bring this request to council for discussion. A three-way stop would be another layer of safety for this area of homes and for the residents walking from Highview. There'll be a lot of residents that will walk from Highview to use the new sidewalks. We've got 2 or 3 apartment buildings there. There is another, I believe, another plan, a subdivision that is either on the books or close to coming. And there's also, we've approved some townhomes on that road as well. So there will be a lot of foot traffic coming from Highview Drive to use those sidewalks. We have a similar situation with 2 separate three-way stops in the Ravens Glen subdivision. And those work really well, making that neighborhood safer for pedestrians. There's one that comes out from the Ball Diamonds, and then there's one at the other end of Ravens Glen Crescent. So anyway, that's the request today from residents to install the three-way stop.
Thank you for that explanation. We are joined by our Manager of Engineering Services, if he'd like to come down, just in case there is a question that you might be able to answer with respect to this. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for bringing this forward, Councillor Clark. I'm all in favor of slowing traffic on any occasion, if possible. I guess my question through the mayor to you is, if this goes through, or if we're proposing to do this, have we asked the rest of the residents in that area if they are in favor of it? Or was it a few people that came forward, or did you get a petition from a number of people? So I'm always leery about putting something different in if the public hasn't been notified or asked.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Renwick. So there was talk of a petition. That didn't happen. I would say there's probably 12 to 15 residents, mostly along the beginning of the Chaffey Township Road, that have been asking for that. So those are the people that have reached out to me that are directly affected. But to answer your question, I don't believe that there's been conversations with the folks in Brookside in that area as well. But I think they would benefit from it because they're going to be walking the sidewalks and coming to that area too, right? So.
Yeah, if I may, on that point, I'm going to ask Michael if you wouldn't mind speaking to that, because if we're including it as part of our design, will there be a public component in that?
So thank you for letting me speak to this. Through you, Chair. I would be sort of hesitant to approach operational traffic issues with the public, because they're usually governed by manuals. So we have the Ontario Traffic Manual that governs when a stop sign should be included, when it shouldn't. There's a perception that everyone has about traffic and about the roads and speeds in front of their homes. I'd say the vast majority of people are always looking for vehicles to slow down in front of their homes, but there are warrants that have to be met when you're looking at intersections like this and improvements to intersections. And I could list a few of them here, just at a high level. Typically what's looked at is traffic volumes, and that's not cumulatively, but at each road. So Highview, based on our last road needs study, there was a traffic count of about 84 vehicles per day. Chaffey Township Road has 1,000. So when you're introducing low volume roads and you're creating a three-way stop, there can be issues in terms of operation. So when taking into account those numbers, you're looking at every 10 cars that pass through Chaffey Township Road, 1 car would pass from Highview. So there's a bit of a queuing issue that could happen. Another warrant that you're looking for is historical collisions, and that's to do with the operation of the intersection itself. We don't have any data with regards to that. And then the other warrant that you're looking at is visual obstructions within the intersection. So through the redesign, we're looking at potentially enhancing some visual obstructions through the area. We're also introducing this pedestrian facility. which will make the road safer a little bit as well. And I think it may be worthwhile, if I can make a recommendation, to look at this again once the road is designed and constructed. That way we can reassess the situation. Maybe driver habits will change a bit, and we could look at it sort of comprehensively and see how that road functions at that point.
Okay, thank you for that. Sorry about that, Councillor Renwick. You have a follow-up.
If I may, Your Worship, thank you for that. And that was maybe my second question, was the data. Does the data support having a three-way stop there? And again, I want to just paraphrase that by saying that I am in favor of slowing traffic down. But if the data that you've received or that we have doesn't warrant it, then I don't see how we can really do it, because it's, so you're saying it's not there, the data?
If I could just follow up through your chair. So the data isn't there. It's also important to mention that stop signs, although it sounds intuitive that they would slow traffic down, they don't always do that. This particular intersection is, the remaining 2/3 of the road. So there's still a long runway mid-block for vehicles to pick up speed and exceed the posted speed limit. So there are other methods that we can utilize, such as the centerline bollards that can go in to sort of make the drive less comfortable for drivers to speed. And then also speed feedback signs as well, if that's the way that council wants to go.
I'm going to Councillor Cluche, back to Councillor Clark, and then to Councillor Morrison.
Through you, Chair. On this particular section of road, we've always had problems. Speed, even with the condition of the road that it's in now. I just, is the request being put in to slow traffic down, or is the request being put in to control? Stop signs can absolutely control traffic, but is it really called for? And if we want to slow traffic, there's other items that we've put forth in the last couple of years, and lots of streets and communities in Huntsville and surrounding area are asking for these calming devices. So maybe that's the solution, and not just the stop signs that Michael had commented on about, is that absolutely the right thing to do in that intersection.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to Councillor Clark, followed by Councillor Morrison, and then Councillor Schumacher.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. So I'll take a minute and address some of Michael's comments if I can. I think one thing that's important to remember here is that it's not just about the traffic on the road, it's about the pedestrian traffic that's going to happen on the sidewalks. There aren't any sidewalks right now. There's going to be a lot of pedestrians walking those sidewalks. And the comments about the volume of traffic, I understand that. But what it doesn't address on Highview is the number of pedestrians that are walking to get out to Chaffey Township Road. So there might be 90 cars stopping at the stop, but there's going to be a lot of people walking to get to the sidewalk, which is going to create a hazard. So I think a stop sign, one of the byproducts of having the stop sign is it may slow down traffic, but I don't think that's the biggest reason for the request for the sign that I received from the residents. Queuing, I don't believe will be an issue. I mean, it's not like we're asking for a traffic light to be installed. If you install a traffic light, you're going to sit at a traffic light, you wait for it to turn. A stop sign, I mean, you come up to a stop sign, you stop, you look both ways, takes you 4 or 5 seconds, maybe, and then you're on to your day, right? So I don't think queuing will be a problem. Like I said, we've got the same situation in the Ravens Glen subdivision. And if you think about the number of traffic and cars that come out of the ballpark, there is some queuing there, but I mean, you're talking hundreds of cars leaving the area all at the same time. You're not going to see hundreds and hundreds of vehicles queuing at that location, I don't believe. So I don't think queuing will be an issue there. So those are my comments to some of Michael's comments.
Okay, thank you for that. I am going to Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, and through you. I agree with Councillor Clark that something probably should be done there, and I'm glad that he's brought it forward based on feedback from the constituents. My spidey senses are saying that the stop sign is not the right answer. If the data clearly says that we would not put one up without people asking for it, then that shows that the traffic count doesn't warrant a stop sign. And to Councillor Cloutier's point, stop sign is not necessarily going to slow me down other than the 5 feet near the stop sign. If you're looking at really slowing down for pedestrians, I think it'd be better to look at those other options, traffic bollards or the signs that you mentioned, Michael. If we're going to have the biggest impact on the residents in there, I think maybe it's best to move this to when the design comes back and then decide what's best at the time. I'm not convinced stop signs would actually help the neighbors as much as other options.
Thank you for that. Before I go to Dion or Councillor Schumacher, it was my understanding, I had thought that the Public Works our Ops Division had looked at the wording of this motion before and had given it sort of a thumbs up, but maybe I'm mistaken in that. I do think there might be some room if we tweaked it to say might consider or something. You know, it says stop signs be included in the reconstruction, maybe consideration of stop signs amongst other things or whatever. I can't go to you yet because I promised Councillor Schumacher. And then, but I already went to Monty, so and then I also have Deputy Mayor Armour. Okay, we're checking on that, the wording, but Councillor Schumacher.
Just more of a comment, really. I am siding with Councillor Clark on this, in that, I mean, I'm not opposed to trying other methods too, but I do know, my sister lives in Glenwood. They walk the dog up Fairview, Highview, up to Chavey Township Road, and her daughter is out walking. There's no sidewalks on Highview, and people are driving quickly. And I mean, I would love it if people would address the road that they're on and drive to the condition of the road, but not everybody does that. So we've had a few who are nice and stop or pull over while you're walking, but there's a number that just barrel through. So I don't know if it's necessarily a three-way stop, but definitely I would say turning right down Highview, because you do have that hill. People tend to pick up speed as they're going down. So that's sort of my concern. And some of those areas are a little hard to see through that. So people pick up speed and they don't necessarily see the pedestrian that is walking there. So I do believe there does need to be some sort of look at how we create that. Is it the three-way stop? I would definitely say at least a stop sign before people turn right onto Highview there for sure. And then the Chavey Township Road 2 piece, a number of hills, and it goes kind of up and down a little at the beginning, and people tend to pick up speed there too. So there does need to be some calming measures for sure.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor Armour, and then Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. I feel if we're considering a three-way stop, we should do it now. It's a lot easier to put it in when you're doing the reconstruction than it is to try and get it in later. There's a lot of construction taking place on Highview right now. Affordable housing going in up in that area. And as Highway 60 gets busier, more people may choose to come out that way instead of coming, or go in that way instead of coming in on Highway 60, because it's a very busy intersection at Ferry Avenue where it comes out to the highway. So I'm not really opposed to it. People have to slow down, come to a bit of a stop and take off again. I think that's something that's going to happen year round. When you put calming measures in, they're only there for 5 months of the year, and then they're taken down, and then people back to the maybe speeding and their habits of driving again. So I'm not opposed to it. I think we should do it in the reconstruction phase if we're going to do it at all.
All right, appreciate those comments, and followed by Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. There seems to be a hot topic today. Thanks, Councillor Clark, for bringing this forward. I have to believe that we need to keep our people safe on our roads. I think we have to rely on what's out there and Michael's experience and how these things are accomplished. So I know that traffic studies are probably 4 or 5 years old, and a lot has happened in that area since that time. So I agree with a bunch of things that have been said, but I think we have to leave it to professionals in their recommendations of what is effective and what actually works. So I have a motion prepared, but I think I might want to change it a little bit.
Okay, appreciate that. But I've now got a whole new slew of hands on the other side. So I saw Councillor Morrison first, then I saw Councillor Renwick, and then Councillor Stone. Sorry, you haven't had a chance for a while. Maybe, you know what, Councillor Morrison? May I go to Councillor Stone first? Do you mind? Councillor Stone.
Well, I just wanted to reiterate what also been said by a few, that I'm not opposed to this, but there's a lot of opinions about traffic, but there's no data that proves that this is the appropriate measure. I don't think stop signs need to go in when we're doing the reconstruction, because it's not big infrastructure like a traffic light or anything. But I believe we're doing the road this year. Is that correct?
It is planned to be constructed this year. Yeah.
Thank you. So we're doing the road and we're doing the sidewalk separate from the road. So that's going to help our pedestrians better than anything else we put in. So as I said, I'm not opposed to this, but I think it should be data driven, and I would be comfortable waiting until all the reconstruction's done and then have a reevaluation. So I can't support this tonight.
I think we're all saying the same thing, which is we all support the concept of we need to make that intersection safer. And I'm really appreciative of the fact that Councillor Clark brought this forward, because it clearly is very important to the people who live there. But I tend to agree with Councillor Stone in the sense that there seems to be a mixed opinion, even amongst the professionals on our team, as to what the most appropriate approach is. And so I kind of think that this is something that we all identify as being very important. We rely on our staff to come forward with the best recommendation to help us get to the solution on it. I don't know what that looks like for a motion, and maybe we'll go back to Councillor Fitzgerald with his, but Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, I think if we focus on safety and the residents and what they want, like the solution might be stop signs and traffic calming, right? Like to give them way more safety. And if we can prevent anything from happening, that's great. But I mean, when you hear the discussion, Councillor Schumacher talking about Highview and walking there and everything else, well, there's already a stop sign there and people are still zooming by them. So it hasn't helped, right? It hasn't slowed people down. So I think when the data is showing that a stop sign is not warranted, the stop sign that's there is not slowing anybody down. If we're going to do something quicker, I think the traffic calming bollards or something would make sense. But I think I'd like to see our staff come back with suggestions on an overall safety plan for that road. And I think, I know Michael was hinting around, we don't want to go to the public as data driven, but what we'd be doing tonight if we pass the motion is going against the data. So then you'd be doing something that the data doesn't support, where I think the public should be consulted at that point. Just my thought.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I'll be quick. I think that was my original question. I'm not against this, but I am in favor of going with the data. But also, we can't do something without having a greater impact from the public. When we do things without consulting the public, we get in trouble. So we've learned that, right? So as much as I believe that it should be data driven, and what Michael has shared with us that it's not really necessary, I think there's a calming measures that we should look at. But I think if we look at after the construction and we look at it again, I think there has to be a component of or talking to the area, the people that live in that area, besides the 15 people that came forward. There's probably more people as well. Data driven, but also we need to consult the public.
Okay, I am going to go to, Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark.
Thanks, Mayor Alcock. So, listen, I understand what's been said here tonight. I disagree with some of what I've heard tonight. I sometimes often sit here and wonder why we have to make every decision that comes here so complicated, to be honest with you. I mean, this is a simple request with a simple solution. Will coming to a stop at this intersection improve safety here? Yeah, 100% it will. I don't need a study or an investigation to tell me that.
Okay, and I have read the motion that was put forward by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor Schumacher. I am going to ask, because you said you had a motion to substitute Councillor Fitzgerald, are you still interested in putting that on the table before I call the question on the other? Okay, so are there any other comments with respect to the motion that is on the floor? I've already read, and it is directing staff to put in a stop sign at the location that we've all been discussing. Councillor Morrison.
The only comment I would make if we're going to amend it is if we're going to look at the stop sign, just look at an overall calming measure practice. Because I think like with the stop signs, from what I can see and what Michael would probably tell you is the only safety that's going to help is accidents at that intersection with cars. It wouldn't really necessarily have a big impact on pedestrians. So I'd want to go further and better protect the pedestrians by doing real calming measures that would help.
That was kind of what I suggested. I
Yeah, I
appreciate
think
that.
I'd like to
Kind
add
of
that
what
in.
I sort of suggested earlier, that we don't necessarily we all agree we need
beef it
to
up.
make it safer. So if we're directing staff to do anything and we're saying very specifically stop signs, but we all think if staff says there are other calming measures that would be more effective, then wouldn't it be best if we direct them to look at all of those measures and come back with that? So I don't know if, yes, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you. Just one last comment. We all have an issue we have an issue right now with people speeding on that road, and we know the condition of that road. So once we build a new road, you can only see traffic traveling quicker. So we're going to have to put something in place, and I still say during the reconstruction phase, we should act now and not wait till we have the issue or someone gets injured and we're back at this table wondering why we didn't do something. So I'm in favor of the stop signs.
Okay, and so in saying that, it's saying we should do it now, whereas the motion is saying stop signs be included in the reconstruction. So that, which is a bit, okay. So we're really clear. There is certainly a faction that would like to proceed right now. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Worship. Perhaps we should just add in to that motion that they look at common traffic measures as well.
All right, so are you proposing an amendment to this motion?
Yes.
And the amendment would, I didn't know that you actually proposed it. I know you talked, all right. Okay, so there we go. This is the main, and you're proposing, if Councillor Morrison, you said you did propose it,
Well, my wording was proposed that we not just the stop signs, because I think the other items might have a better impact on safety, so that other calming measures be installed at the same time or considered. So now we're doubling down on the safety. And the wording can be whatever the clerk thinks is good. We can put it on there. And the timing, I think Deputy Mayor Armour said, talking about timing, I mean, it's sooner the better, of course. But the wording right now is that it would be done when the reconstruction is done, right?
okay, okay. So
then people are
you
gonna go
are
faster.
adding the additional calming measures be included for consideration, but you're also keeping in the stop signs be included in the reconstruction. So you're saying go forward with that.
Yeah, like I don't think the stop signs are going to hurt anybody.
Okay,
Right, so
all
there's
right.
no reason
Fair
not to
enough.
do it,
Yep.
but I
Okay.
also,
Just so I understood correctly.
and Councillor Clark has a pulse of that road. If he feels that the majority want it, then I'm not really opposed to it. I just don't want to get the phone calls, people saying, we were never told, and
Yeah,
why we do.
okay, all right. I am, and that's what you wanted, Councillor Fitzgerald. Okay, are there any? Who was that? Well, Councillor, it was moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. Either way. Okay, so we do now have a motion to amend, moved by Councillor Morrison, seconded by Councillor Fitzgerald. And if you put that up on the screen, and it is with the addition of the wording, and further that additional calming measures be included for consideration. Any questions or comments about that amendment? Could be considered, is additional calming measures be included, be considered. Okay, sure, be considered. All right, everyone's nodding, that's fine, be considered. Okay, are there any questions or comments about the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment? All those opposed? Okay, that carries. So I'm going to call the question on the main motion as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, and that carries. Thank you very much for attending, Michael. That's great. We are going to whiz through the end of this public meeting before we go to closed. We will break before we go into closed. All right? So, under general information, we just had an update on the Ontario Land Tribunal bylaw regarding OLT Summit GP decision, the 2026-28 OLT Summit GP decision. If there were any questions on that, Director Maxwell is here and happy to answer. I don't see any, so we're going to move directly to the District of Muskoka update. And may I have, are they here? They're right here. Okay, I'm supposed to start. District of Muskoka update. So starting with District Council, there are two updates. The first one was on March 3rd. It was all in camera as it related to labor relations or employee negotiations. And so nothing I can add to that. And one district council meeting held on Monday, March 16th. I actually was not in attendance at that meeting. Is there anything any of the district councilors have to add with respect to the district council meeting? Nope, seeing nothing. All right, so I can move that one over. And I am now going to Deputy Mayor Armour to start the joint EPW and FCS meeting that was held on March 18th. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Worship. As you stated, March 18th, we had a good meeting. It was all in person, which was nice to have. We had an oral presentation from a local resident here in Huntsville who was having issues with his oblique bags being picked up. So he's been working with the waste management group down there now, and they found a resolution. They were picked up this week. So we thanked them for that coming in. We had quite a few on our consent agenda about water and awarding the King Street reconstruction from Scott Street down. So that all went through. We have Clean Muskoka Together coming up, which is the illegal dumping and anti-littering campaign, which is going to be happening soon. And if they're asking for those to pick a highway or pick a road and go pick up garbage, you can drop it off for free at the landfill site. We had a report on the Muskoka Clear Bag Program, which first year in review. So there have been 336,000 fewer black bags going into our landfill site. And to date, that's extended it by 2 years. 99% of green bins are being used now, which is excellent. And there's been a diversion of 2,690 tons of reduction of waste going into the landfill site. So that's huge, with also a reduction in green gas.
Deputy Mayor Armour, I wonder if you remember, I think it was Councillor Rhodes who made reference to the number of elephants.
Yeah.
Whales. Was it whales? Was it whales? It was so great.
Yeah.
I forget the number of whales that is, but it actually was an incredible comparison to illustrate
Absolutely.
the amount that has been diverted from our landfills. It was such a great. I
It
wish I
was a
could
lot of
remember.
them.
It was a lot of whales.
I don't
lot of
remember
whales.
the exact number.
But
But anyhow, that's
thank
a
you for highlighting
great,
that.
good news story going on. I know there's some frustrations moving to clear bags, but it's making a huge difference and going to save you tax money in the long run when we don't have to start diverting our money to be incinerated or shipping it out of Muskoka or someplace else. So it's that's a good news story. And that was the biggest part of our whole meeting, and I'll move it along to finance. for services.
Okay, thank you for that. And there seems to be a question. We're not moving to finance at all. So, Councillor Schumacher.
Dan's kind of already aware of this. Can we just chat a bit about Bittern Creek culvert? Jason and I have had a few emails and some calls around that. and I
We
know
were going
have-
to talk about that a bit later, but
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay.
Over to Deputy Mayor Armour, for sure.
For those who may not be aware, they've had some issues with the replacement of the culvert in Bittern Creek. Some of the issues have been equipment breakdown and unfortunately not getting the proper equipment to come in and dig the hole. There's issues with hydro lines running across the top. So using the large panels, as you can imagine, for a culvert that have to go down and be bolted together. So there's some, they need some news from hydro whether they can get through and move those through too. So it's been frustrating, I know, for those people living on, which would be, I guess, the north side or the west side, the extra 45-minute drive. But they are trying to work through them right now, and Freshet is coming, and they're trying as quick as they can. But unfortunately, it's frustrating for a lot of people, but and the district. There are timelines set for the construction company, so I believe it was supposed to be 5 weeks. So there could be some penalties coming to them at the end of the day, but I know they're working as hard as they can, and just ask everybody for their patience.
Great. And I'm glad you asked the question. Thank you for the update on that.
Yeah, I
Councillor
was going to say, I
Schumacher?
believe it's around Easter is like the deadline, April 5th or something. And then if they do go past that, they will be fined, I guess, or whatever that looks like. I just do feel for the constituents who are that when we look at gas prices today, when I put in that
Right.
Smith's was 159.9, and then for them to have to
Do a
do
detour.
a 2-hour return trip now is what it is
Yeah.
concerning kind of for them. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no, you're right. Okay, with that, I'm going to Councillor Morrison to an update on FCS.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Alcock, and through you. Really just two items worth mentioning. We had a report come back from a consultant about looking at a Fairburn long-term care home fundraising feasibility study. Based on that report and all that would be involved with implementing something, we all agreed that it wouldn't make sense at this time to do such a thing. The cost, time, and competing with local share and all that stuff. So we got away from that, but we did put forward a motion to look into naming rights policies at Fairburn, because it's hard to fundraise for a building that's already built. So a new plan, new way of looking at it, and it was a really good discussion. And then the only other one is the regarding collection agency agreements, and the big one being collection of provincial fines. And we wiped out, if somebody sees the number, it'll frighten you, but we wiped out $2.442 million in uncollectible defaulted provincial offenses. But just keep in mind, that's from 1976 to 2005. So these are not in the last, it's not like we're wiping out people's debt from the last 5 years. If you just see the number, you'll freak out. But that's what happened. And then Deputy Mayor Armour had the best question of the meeting when they talked about the fact that moving forward, if there's provincial offenses outstanding, they want to add it to the property tax bill. So Deputy Mayor Armour said, well, I'm hoping that would involve the lower tier municipalities in discussion and how it's all shaped up. And they said, absolutely it would. We would have to kind of agree and shape that. So that could be coming down the pipeline. I warned some of our staff today to be aware of it. And those are the two items that maybe are worth thinking about.
Thank you for that update. Our CAO would like to comment.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So the Muskoka CAOs met today, and actually that item came up for discussion. And I know some of the concern, specifically from myself, was the district always gets paid their taxes. And if that burden is transferred to the lower tier municipality, that could have quite an impact. So that was recognized, and they said that when they're moving forward with this project, that they would certainly keep that in consideration. And perhaps if a property did go up for tax sale, that there might be some provisions in place whereby that amount would be removed from what's outstanding on the taxes. So we do have our finger on the pulse on that one at the lower tiers. Yeah.
Councillor Morrison?
A follow-up to that, something that did come up even in agenda review is if we're going to be managing that for them, wouldn't a 10% fee or a management fee be appropriate, right? We're actually collecting their money and distributing it to them. Nobody does that for free, so something to think about.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like the CIOs are all over it. Yeah, that's great. That's very good. Thank you for that update. Or any other comments around that? Okay, then I'm moving to the joint Community Planning Services and Health Services Committee. I'm going to start because the meeting, it does start with Community Planning Services. We had a number of items that were of great interest, but the ones I thought were worth highlighting, I made reference to the update on the Lake System Health Water Quality Monitoring Program. And again, it had some areas of concern, which we talked about earlier with respect to salt usage. There was approval at committee for the Huntsville Transitional Housing Project. And this is the one where the district will be building 10 units for transitional housing on Haynes Road. Originally, there was approval for 5 units. They applied for funding from the province for an additional 7. That application was unsuccessful, so staff found the additional money for 5 more units, and so now we're definitely going ahead with 10. That was that was good news because we certainly need it in Huntsville. The issue that I think caused a lot of discussion, a very good discussion, was around a motion that was brought forward by Councillor Morrison, having spent a lot of time working with our planning team at the District of Muskoka, and it was moved by Councillor Sutherland, who was here earlier, and seconded by Councillor Stone. And the motion was asking council to consider doing a review of planning efficiencies at the district, and also the relationship between district and lower tier municipalities. If you would like to add anything to that, Councillor Morrison, please feel free. It was a fantastic discussion, and it was supported unanimously by all of the councillors at the table, which was great. And I appreciate all of the work that went into that. Anything to add?
Just maybe, it just goes to show when you meet with staff and talk to them, the experts in their field, to make sure you're bringing the proper motion forward, it really works. And we were able to bring something forward that staff got behind, and it was really all about the cost that delays add to the cost of housing. The data was there, and it just made sense. So yeah, for everybody to help me out, I'd thank them.
That's great. Okay. And I think that's it for me on the CAPS agenda. So over to you, Councillor Stowe.
The only thing you missed was we had a report on homelessness, and it was heart-wrenching, actually, and the numbers are escalating very quickly, and it was very sad to see the data and the limited capacity that we have to deal with it. It's very difficult. Anyways, health services. It was a short portion of the meeting. We entered into an agreement to share data with Evoke Health to increase efficiencies at the long-term care homes. We received a donation of $500,000 to assist in some way for paramedic services. So it was thankfully received for sure, and will be applied in 2 different areas. And we gave permission for the paramedic tiered response agreement with the municipalities. And that's it.
Okay, any questions around that? Okay. Last but not least, on the District of Muskoka update is our OPP Detachment Board. And in fact, there were 2 meetings, one February 3rd, which was the last meeting of the Huntsville OPP Detachment Board with our former detachment commander, Jean-Paul Graham. And the meeting on March 17th was with the incoming Inspector Detachment Commander, Jeff Dixon. So we do have a new detachment commander at the Huntsville Detachment. And we will, it's one level up from what the old detachment commander was. It's at the inspector level, which speaks volumes as to the need in the Huntsville Detachment. And we will also be bringing in a new detachment commander to replace Jean-Paul Graham. And he has gone on to another opportunity elsewhere. And I wish him great success. He was such a fantastic detachment commander in our community, and he will be missed. I have met the new commander, and he is very familiar with our community and will be a great asset too. So we're quite lucky, and that's all I have to report on the OPP. So with that, we had council correspondence from February 13th to March 13th. And quickly recapping past events, on February 27th, we had the Children's Foundation of Muskoka Maple Leafs alumni game at the Muskoka Lumber Community Arena in Bracebridge. And of course, on February 28th, we had the Coldest Night of the Year event. And Councillor Fitzgerald, once again, would you have anything to say about that you feel? I know you sent an email around to all of those who contributed and were part of it, but once again, I think you topped the charts on fundraising.
I think one of our staff members has communicated to everyone how much we've donated over the years. I think this is my 10th year. Astonishing that small little groups in little communities and communities our size are able to raise like $15 million in one night. That's the walk. And believe me, I fundraise for a lot longer than one night. But the town team has been amazing, and the community always steps up and does what they need to do to help those people in our community that are in need. So another great success, and couldn't do it without all the people in our community.
Thank you for that. And I know that Table Food certainly is incredibly appreciative of all of the funding over these past years. So on March 5th, there was an event at Deerhurst for International Women's Day. I attended that. And on March 20th, the Knights of Columbus charity hockey tournament was hosted in the town of Huntsville. And I believe, Councillor Morrison, you dropped the puck at that event. Thank you for doing that. Upcoming events, we have a ribbon cutting at the new Table Plaza on March 24th. And on April 2nd, the YWCA Muskoka is holding its Women of Distinction 20th Awards Gala event at Deerhurst Resort. We'll be speaking at that. And on April 5th, annual community Easter egg hunt. Councillor Schumacher, did you want to say anything about that? No? It's at the Muskoka Heritage Place. The gates open at 12 p.m. And it is
I'm
being...
gonna guess the Nutty Chocolatier
is
is
sponsoring
again
the
every
event
year. Kudos to them. They
Yeah.
do a great job.
Great. All right. And then on April 25th, we have the Muskoka Maple Fest. Anything you'd like to add, Councillor Renwick, or would you like me to do that? Is it okay? April 25th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. along Main Street in the downtown. The Rotary Pancake Breakfast is at from 9 a.m. to noon, and there will be live music and fun activities for all ages. And that's all I have. Anyone else with Councillor Morrison?
Thank you, Mayor Alcock, and through you. Just pretty excited. There's an event I'm helping some people put together for May 13th and May 14th. Daryl Fox, who's Terry Fox's brother, I was approached by the Probus Group because they're trying to bring him to town. I want to know if I can help them make the event a bit bigger and do more than just the Probus event. So they're going to be bringing Daryl Fox. For those that don't know, he is high up there with the Terry Fox Foundation. When he was 17 years old, he actually joined his brother and his brother's best friend in New Brunswick at the age of 17 in 1980. And then since then, I think it was just last year, him and a group of 8 people rode their bikes across the country. And I think it was 7,000 kilometers. So he's very active. So what we're hoping to do, I'll have more information after our next meeting, but they're going to be doing an event at Faith Baptist Church for the Probus Club. He's going to visit the oncology ward at the local hospital. And he's going to also try to connect with a big group of grade 4 to grade 8 kids from all over the region. And then the event that I'm helping with, I connected Michael Walmsley with Carrie at Enliven. And we're going to try to do an Enliven event at Canvas Brewery the night of the 14th. where Daryl will speak. And it'll be some music, and he'll talk about his brother's legacy and all the great things that are going on. So that's coming up, and I'm really, really excited about it.
And that's April 14th?
May 14th.
May 14th,
Yeah.
sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's great. That's interesting. All right, cool. Councillor Renwick?
If I may, Your Worship, last Tuesday, I had the honor of attending the memorial service for a very well-known member of our community. It was Lloyd Henry, who passed away. And there were quite a few people that came to Trinity United Church, and they had a lovely sort of meal or a little luncheon afterwards. But I just want to sort of put a shout out to Nancy Wenger from Nutty Chocolatier and the connection that she had with Mr. Henry. And Mr. Henry was such a, anyone in downtown who was ever downtown would know he walked everywhere, and the stories that were shared and just about his life and about his commitment to our community and the things that he did, it was quite incredible. So I just wanted to share that it was, like I said, an honor to be there and to listen to his life.
I'm so glad you did. I wanted to attend. It was the day I was flying back. And so that was one of the things I felt really badly I missed, because I couldn't agree more. What a knowledgeable person, a day oneer, Huntsvillian. His family goes way back, and a real character, and he will be very much missed in our community. Thank you for that update. Anyone else? Okay, then with that, we are going to take a 10-minute break before we move into close. Okay? Okay, welcome back, everybody. For those of you who may still be watching, we are about to go into close, but before we do, we're deviating for 1 second, as we earlier had an issue about calling a vote before someone was asked if they had a question, and so we're rectifying that. I have a motion before me. It has been moved by Deputy Mayor Armour and seconded by Councillor Cluche. Be it resolved that Council reconsider the motion for Report Corp 2026-2740 Florence Street West Communications Tower Engineering Review. And all it is a quick reconsideration so that we may consider what Deputy Mayor Armour wanted to ask Council. And so I will turn it over to the deputy. Oh, yes, whether we can, all right. I'm calling the vote as to whether or not we can reconsider. All those in favor? Yes, that carries. Doesn't matter, we've got it, we've got it. Okay, now, I am not reading the entire motion again because we know what it was that we voted on, but I am going to ask Deputy Mayor Armour what it is that you wanted to suggest before I called the vote.
Thank you, Your Worship, for bringing this back. What I wanted to suggest was instead of removing the funds from the IT reserve, which is currently in a deficit, that we just remove the funds for the study out of the working funds.
Well, that seems absolutely reasonable, and so I do have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Cluche. Be it resolved that in paragraph 6, the following be struck out, IT reserve, and replaced with working funds. Are there questions around that? I don't see any, so I am going to call the question. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously, Deputy Mayor Armour.
Thank you,
Look
Your
at
Worship.
that. So now I am going to call the main motion as amended. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously, Deputy Mayor Armour. Thank you very much for doing that. That was great. With that, I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Armour, seconded by Councillor Morrison. Be it resolved that the next portion of the meeting be closed to the public, commencing now at 7:53 p.m. for the purpose of considering the following matter pursuant to Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. C, the proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality. Confidential Report Corp 2026-14, 92 Main Street East, lease. All those in favor? And that carries. All right. Welcome back, everybody. For those who might still be watching, we do have one matter arising from our closed session. So I do have a motion moved by Councillor Stone, seconded by Councillor Renwick. Be it resolved that the recommendation as outlined in Confidential Report Corp 2026-1492 Main Street East lease be adopted. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. I have another motion moved by Councillor Schumacher, seconded by Councillor Cloutier. Be it resolved that confirmation bylaw 2026-29 be received and passed this 23rd day of March 2026. All those in favor? And that carries. And finally, I have a motion moved by Councillor Renwick, seconded by Deputy Mayor Armour. Be it resolved that we do now adjourn at 8:18 p.m. All those in favor? And that carries.